There is a fundamental problem with the way that we purchase clothes, and as a teenager who is slightly obsessed with clothes and shoes, okay, maybe it's not that small of an obsession. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. So as we can see, it's really easy to fall into a wasteful economy. Many years ago, people would only buy clothes if they really needed it. If a dress got ripped at the skirt, they would hem it a little shorter or patch it up as best as they could. And if that dress or shirt or pants or whatever they were wearing was too far gone, they'd turn it into something else, like rags for a kitchen. Not to mention that these garments were made of natural fibers, not man-made ones that once are thrown into the landfill are going to stay there for 500 years. So I've taken it upon myself, as the teenager who is slightly obsessed with her clothing, to make something I'm going to be calling my circular project. And not just because it's round. It's a circular project because it takes things that are at the end of their current life and puts them back into the cycle of being used. So let's go take a look at what that might be. So a circular project can manifest itself in different ways. It can be a sweater that you renovate into something new, or a dress that you make into a two-piece set. But for today, I'm going to show you how to make a bucket hat out of socks that don't have their little friends, because it's something that's currently trending and can be used even after it's out of style. So for that, I'm going to need my trusty sock drawer and some of my old pairless socks. So the first thing that you're going to do is dump out all your socks onto the floor. Then try to separate and find the ones that are single and by themselves. So these were the socks that I ended up with, but it turned out I needed a lot more fabric, so I just ended up using scraps. You can use old t-shirts, for example. For those who might be doing this as their first project, I'm going to try to explain how to cut out the pattern. Q means quilting, I means interfacing, and C means canvas. Q is referring to the socks that we're going to sew together. I is referring to the interfacing, which we're going to fuse to make the quilting one, the socks, stiffer. And C is the canvas, which is going to be the other side of our bucket hat, so it makes it reversible. So from this, you're going to have three parts of the pattern. The top, which is a round piece, the side, which is a smaller curved piece, and then the brim, which is a much larger wide piece. So here I've shown that you must cut from the sides 2 for both the interfacing and the canvas. And this is the brim. The brim is, remember, the wide one that is really curvy. This one's going to be the one that sits on your forehead. And from this one, you're going to also cut 2 for both the quilting and the canvas and the interfacing. So you're going to have many pieces in the end. But let's just take it step by step for now. From the circle, which I'm going to call the top, you're going to cut 1 each of all 3 fabrics. From the side, you're going to cut 2 each from all 3 of the fabrics. And from the brim, you're going to cut 2 each from all 3 of the fabrics. Something special about the brim and the sides is that you have to cut them on the fold. For those who don't know what on the fold means, when you have your fabric, you can fold it over on one side. In order for you to get a completely even curve, and it makes it a lot easier to cut and saves a lot more space, you fold your fabric and you put the edge where it says on the fold on that fold, so that when you cut it, it cuts out that even piece that you wanted by saving space. I cut up my pattern and I had 2 pairs. So what I did was, in order to get the patchwork that I wanted, I cut up the second pair of the pattern, and when I was cutting out my fabric, I would leave a seam allowance, so a finger's length, between the edges that I had cut. Then I began to sew them face to face, so right side to the right side. A good example is shown here. The blue line symbolizes the original cut on the pattern. When I sew on it, it'll give me the exact shape that the pattern had from before, just like this one right there. Then I trimmed the edges that I had just sewn, and I kept those little trims in case I needed stuffing for future projects. This fabric that I'm showing is interfacing. It is an optional step if you would like to go for it. It is a type of fabric that fuses to your project and makes it a lot stiffer. The rough side goes face down onto the fabric and then you iron. Remember, the rough side faces the wrong side of your fabric. So iron it on and hold the iron down for 5 seconds on each spot. This one I'm doing here is just to demonstrate going over each of the spots, but hold it on for longer. In the end, the interfacing gave me this really nicely stiff and solid fabric that I can use as a harder surface instead of the floppy socks. Then I cut out a canvas fabric, so one that is already stiff and does not need to be interfaced. Now we're going to sew the brim. So we have those 2 pieces of brim that we had cut from before, ready and prepped. What we're going to do is we're going to put them right sides together. So on your fabric, there's a side that you're going to want to face out. So this is this side, and then the other side is the wrong side. Put them right sides together. And then you're going to sew on the wrong side. You're going to end up with 2 pieces, one that is quilted, and it's going to be a little bit like a donut, circular and flat, and one that is canvas, same thing. Then I sewed the 2 halves of the brim together. So we have the quilted one that was sewn with the quilted one. It gave me a circle. Then the same thing happened with the canvas. After I did that, I sewed the canvas and the quilted one together. That gave me the brim of my hat. Now we're going to sew the sides together. So we're going to do the exact same thing that we had done with the brim. The 2 pieces, we're going to be sewing them face to face, right side to right side, on the wrong side. This time, instead of it coming out as a donut or like a flat circle, it's going to come out a little bit like a tube. We're going to do the same thing for the quilted one and the canvas one. What I'm doing here, sewing the top to the sides, is going to be the hardest part. So let's go into a little bit more detail again. You're going to have the quilted tube and the quilted top. You're going to sew those together, right sides together again, and what you're going to do is you're going to pin it and line it up as best as you can together. Then you're going to sew all around in a circle. You're going to do the same exact thing with the canvas one. Then, in order to have it so that it's a reversible hat, where all of the seams and stuff are going to be on the inside and not the outside, we're going to sew each of them separately. So we have our quilted hat, which was the top and the sides, and we have our canvas hat, which is the top and the sides, but canvas. Then we have our brim, which is the brim of both the canvas and the quilted that had been sewn together. What you're going to do is you're going to flip inside out the quilted and the canvas brim, and you're going to sew each of them separately to their according hat or top piece. So here it is being flipped inside out. You're going to take this side of the quilted and attach it to the same quilted side. You're going to sew it all the way around. You're going to take that side of the canvas and you're going to sew it to its canvas side. But this time you're not going to sew it all the way around. You're going to leave a 3-inch hole somewhere around there in order for us to flip it inside out. Sew everything right sides together, and then once we've turned it right side out, we're going to sew close the hole by hand. And that's all there is to it. So you're going to have a reversible hat that is made from old socks that would have just gone into the garbage and didn't have any other use. That is my circular project.